Hi guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like to be programmed to be codependent. You know, there's a lot of people today who are Googling that topic, codependence. And one of the reasons why they're doing that is because, you know, there's a lot of relationships that either start out really great or, you know, they end later, or they, you know, start out really rocky and they end up great down the road. Or the individual walks away from the relationship saying, what in the world did I get out of that? You know, why did I hang on for so long? So today I'm going to talk about what it's like to be programmed to be codependent. And then I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that term in and of itself. So let's just go ahead and jump in. Thank you so much to all of you who are subscribed and participating. Thank you so much. And thank you for your wonderful comments. I really do read them all. I try to respond to every last one of them, and I appreciate them. Thank you. And for those who are new to the channel, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I think it's on this side, so that you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing and validating community. And in case you don't know who I am, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist, but I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize within my practice in treating children, teens, and families. Codependency, you know, really is a complicated term, and I think a lot of people go online and they Google the term and they draw their own conclusions, and then they point the finger at themselves and say, you know, okay, I guess I'm codependent. Codependency is really more complicated than just I'm overly dependent upon a person. It really does encompass a series of emotional and psychological levels within yourself, and it also encompasses a series of voids and emotional weaknesses within you to really get you to that criteria of codependency. It's not just because you are dependent upon somebody that you're codependent. So I think that needs to be clarified. I also think too that we need to look at things like dependent personality disorder. We also need to look at traumatic bonding, and we also need to look at dysfunctional families and how they're enmeshed before we finally decide, okay, I'm codependent. Because there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this. And, you know, if you were to come into my office and I would do psychotherapy with you, the first part of my assessment is, you know, really trying to delve in and figure out, are you really codependent? Are you just simply enmeshed? Are you just simply in a traumatic bond? Or are you in a little bit of an interdependent relationship, but there's some codependency pieces to the puzzle. So there's a lot to look at there. So, you know, I think it's important to kind of decipher between the two. So let me go ahead and give you a definition of three important terms I want you to keep in mind when you're trying to consider, you know, if you've been programmed by your traumatic experience, if you've been programmed by a series of unhealthy relationships over time, or if you've been programmed by your upbringing, by the attachment or non-attachment you had with your parent. You know, whatever the case may be, I want to highlight three things that I want you to keep in mind. All right. The first thing that I want you to keep in mind is a clear definition of codependency. Okay. Codependency is basically a maladaptive and dysfunctional reliance upon another person for meaning or functionality. You are overly reliant because there's no other way for you to function except for to function in the relationship as a needy person. You've kind of learned to give up your independence. You've learned over time to give up your ability to express your needs and wants. And so because of that, you end up emotionally, physically, and sometimes even sexually abused within the relationship because your needs and wants are not being made known. It's typically the other person who gets everything in the relationship. Okay, so codependency, again, I'm going to put it right here for you guys so that you can keep this in mind. It's a maladaptive and dysfunctional over-reliance on an individual for functionality or even meaning in life. Okay, codependency. The next is interdependence. And I'm sure you guys have never heard of this. Interdependence is basically a balance in reliance on each other within a relationship. You know, it continues to be both beneficial to the individuals as well as healthy, you know, within the relationship. And I'm sure you've had a relationship like this. If you've had a good parent, if you've had a good husband, if you've had an absolutely wonderful grandparent, you know what an interdependent relationship looks like. It's both of you working in that relationship at the same time. And it's both of you really getting to a point of, you know, needing each other, but in a healthy way. The relationship is balanced. It's a balance of reliance. It's not one person overly reliant on the other, or one person needing the other person for meaning or purpose in life. It's a balance right here, guys. It's a balance in reliance. I rely on you, you rely on me. We both bring things to the relationship, and that's what keeps us bonded. Okay? Interdependence. The next, enmeshment. Enmeshment is something I talk about a lot on this channel, especially when you go into my playlist on family and holidays and, triangulation. Enmeshment is important. Enmeshment is not another form of codependency. And some people have even tried to say it's the same thing. It's not. Codependency is different. Enmeshment is different. Enmeshment is basically a family theory term. And what it says is that the enmeshment between two family members is so dysfunctional and skewed that the individuals within the relationship can't access their own emotions. You've heard people in families say, she knows everything I'm thinking at every moment, or I can literally feel her feelings, or you've heard people say things like, she completes every sentence that I have, and it's exactly what I was thinking. Although that is cute with twins, it's not so cute when you're not a twin. You know what I mean? So if you have a family member who's completing your sentences and you can't get a word in, that's a problem. If you have a family member who, says that they feel everything that you feel and they know exactly how you feel because I'm that connected to you, that's a problem. It's enmeshment. An example of enmeshment would be, let's say, for example, you are growing up in a household that's very traumatic, and your father left the home. Now your mother is emotionally connected with you in such a way that, you can't experience your own emotions and your own thoughts because your mother constantly throws her emotions and her thoughts into the mix. And so nobody can figure out what's your emotions or what her emotions are separate from you because she's so overly dependent on you that you don't have any room to really experience your own emotions and your thoughts, and you can't even have the space to express them fully without her cutting you off or jumping in saying that she completely understands what you're feeling. So enmeshment is another unhealthy way to exist within a relationship. So I'm sure you guys are dying to know, what are the symptoms, what are the characteristics, what are the behaviors that shows that I'm programmed to be codependent? Let's jump into that. All right. So the first thing that I often tell my clients when they come into my office and they're coming here because they want to understand why they're so codependent is that, the first sign is that you have a very fragile sense of self. Now, what I mean by a fragile sense of self is that you don't have the ability to really see who you are. You don't know what you value. You don't know what your morals are. You don't know what you think and feel because you've been so conditioned over the years by a traumatic individual in your life, a person that has caused trauma in your life, I should say, or you've been in relationships that have compromised your ability to be independent, right? So you have a fragile sense of self. There is no strength in who you are as a person. And as a matter of fact, you may even find yourself jumping from this identity to this identity to that identity. That's not multiple personality disorders, because I know some of you are thinking that. It's not that. It's more so, I know who I am. I'm not fragmented like in multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, I should call it. I'm not fragmented. It's just, I don't know who I am. So I'm constantly jumping from this person to that person to this person. And it's not a clinical syndrome like dissociative identity disorder. It's more of an identity crisis, if you will. You're jumping from this person to the next because you don't know exactly who you are. All right. So a fragile sense of self. The next thing, guys, is a sense of responsibility, even if abused and neglected. So, this is not traumatic bonding. I'm actually going to mention that next. What I mean by this is you have such a sense of responsibility to the person who has kept you codependent that you don't know how to step away even when you're being abused, even when you're being neglected. You stay in the trenches with that person and you believe wholeheartedly that you are being loyal, that you are being dedicated, that you are being a person of great morals and values. So you're going to stick in there with that person no matter what, even though they're dragging you through the mud. You have to, be apologized to frequently. You don't know how to manage, their emotions with your emotions. You don't know how to manage a life with this person anymore. And yet you stay involved with this person, a toxic family member, which I talk about right up here in this video if you want to check that out after this video. You stay in the toxic family relationship or romantic relationship or a parent because you feel that you have to. You have to. So your sense of responsibility to this person is skewed and you stay no matter what. The next, traumatic bonding. I talk a lot about that on this channel. Here's a video that I did a couple years ago about traumatic bonding. You may get some information there that may be helpful. But traumatic bonding is basically the idea that you have gotten stuck between two people, okay? So let's say you have a mother who's abused you all of your life. You're now 20 years of age. You know you have the ability to move out. You have the ability to go somewhere else. You have the ability to live life somewhere else, right? You have the ability to function somewhere else. The problem is that you don't. And you don't because you feel indebted. And that indebtedness is, if there's such a word, I can't think if there is, that indebtedness, guys, kind of keeps you stuck. And it keeps you stuck because you are stuck between two opposing people in that person. Okay? So an example, let's say your mother has abused you. You are stuck between the nice mother and the abusive mother. And you can't figure out who is the person that has abused you all of your life. Is it a loving mother who just doesn't know how to raise me or care for me? Or is it an abusive mother who manipulates? Who is this person? Because there's so many views of you. And so you get stuck between that. And so you fall in love, for lack of a better word, you fall in love with the nice mother, even though over here the abusive mother is still seething underneath the surface, ready to come out at any moment. But you stay in this bond with a person because you can't figure out who that person really is. And so then you become overly indebted to them, overly reliant upon them, and so then you can't walk away. And that's what's called a trauma bond. Okay, so it could be that. The next thing, guys, that I talk about with my clients, is your assertion of your individual needs is thwarted or skewed or unable to happen. What I mean by that is that you can't even assert your independence to say, this is what I need. This is what I really need to function in this relationship, whatever relationship it is. You can't get that across because the other individual is either going to minimize you, they're going to condescend, they're going to exaggerate and create such an explosion that the ultimate reason for that argument gets lost. They're going to try to distract you, confuse you. They may even try to make you feel guilty. They may even start bringing up things from the past, right? From the past, and bringing it into the present moment to really thwart the attention. So you can't even assert your individual needs because of this individual. It's traumatic, okay? The next thing is a lack of appropriate boundaries, okay, guys? So, this is something that, I have a lot of in my office, not as much as I used to. I have wonderful families now, but in the past when I was dealing with families that were in the trenches of trauma and abuse and neglect and chaos and sociopathy and narcissism, a lack of boundaries was something I saw all the time. And there was never any gray. There were either one or two things in the forefront. Overly fluid boundaries, meaning the boundaries were permeable, easy to be moved, easy to be readjusted. There's no firm boundary that, demands respect and attention. Or it was the second thing, which would have been overly rigid boundaries. And those boundaries really kept the relationship from moving forward, guys. So, really complex boundaries is something that's likely to happen as well if you're in a codependent relationship. Boundaries, that are healthy are permeable. They are able to stand firm when they need to, and they are able to be fluid when they need to. There's gray, okay? Consider the permeable boundary as a gray in the relationship, Unhealthy boundaries are black and white. And that's not good. Either too fluid or too flexible or too rigid and overly strict. That's never healthy. A healthy relationship always has some gray, which is the permeable boundaries in the relationship. All right. The next thing is a fusion of personality and mindset. When I often bring this up with my clients or those who consult with me, I often say, look, You need to look for a relationship that is healthy and balanced. And if there's a fusion of personality to where you no longer know who you are, that's a problem. And that needs to be changed. If we don't change it, then, we really are asking to be minimized and to completely lose our identity. So if you're in a relationship where there's a fusion of personality and there is no boundary line between you and that other person's ethics and morals and thoughts and feelings and personality traits, that's a problem. Okay. Shared psychosis. Shared psychosis is something I talk about in this older video right up here. The idea behind shared psychosis is that there's one dominant psychotic person in the mix, and they share all of their thoughts and delusions and hallucinations and beliefs with you to a point that it overwhelms you and overtakes you. And so you begin to think like that psychotic person. And so both of you are meeting diagnostic criteria for psychosis because of how that one individual has completely thwarted your thinking style, your emotions, and how you view the world. It really is a tragic situation, but it can happen. And last but not least is sacrificing of your values and your morals. Whenever that starts to happen, guys, you're in an unhealthy codependent relationship. I love to bring my values and my morals and my own thoughts and beliefs to a relationship. And if I get somebody that can balance that out with me, it's a wonderful, wonderful partnership. But if you have a situation where, you're really minimizing and compromising and sacrificing your values and your thoughts and your morals and your values just to be in a relationship with that person, that's a problem, because what you're saying is, here's my identity just in exchange for this relationship, and it's never worth it. It's never worth it. So, guys, these are issues that I hope you haven't experienced, but if you have, I'm so glad that you are here to watch this video, because hopefully this can illuminate some things to you. Let me know in the comment section below if this video was helpful and what you might want to see on this topic moving forward. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. Please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. It pushes the video up in the search results so other people can have access to this video, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell button if you want to stick around and get more videos like this. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.